So Anthony Joshua plans on taking this fight back to the streets. This rematch with Usyk in his new IFL TV exclusive interview. It was an hour long. I just finished listening to it. I watched the whole thing. I'm an AJ fan, so of course I wanted to hear what he had to say. He basically addressed everything. All right, he talked about the fight, the loss to Usyk. He's talking about the rematch and how he plans to, what's his preparation for the rematch, his mindset after the loss to Ruiz in the first fight, his mindset in the loss to Usyk. He's responded to what many have said about his loss to Usyk. He talked about his visit to the U.S., bouncing around, visiting different coaches, his experience with that. And this was a really raw interview. This is not the super professional AJ. This is the AJ that reminds me of the same AJ that lost to Ruiz. Real raw and rugged. Wasn't shaved. He was making a point like after his loss to Usyk, he didn't feel like he needed to go on vacation. He went straight into trying to figure out what's the next step. And he drops a lot of F-bombs. He curses a lot in this interview. You don't really normally see him talk like that. But I have seen him this way, and he usually talks this way when he's pissed off, coming off of a loss. This is the second time I've seen him in this form. And I like it, because as much class I think he has and how much respect I have for him and his character. That's part of the reason why he's one of my favorites. Not just because what he could do in the ring. I mean, I definitely respect what he can do in the ring, but I like his character, He's obsessed with learning. He's obsessed with it. And I'm not basing that strictly on this interview alone. I'm basing that on just the years of watching him grow, and he always talks about learning. Even before the loss to Usyk, he's talking like, it was a sparring session. Like he's in there to fight Usyk, but he's in there to learn as well. He's in there to learn from him. And I respect that. Now, he says he's gonna do without the sweet science in his next fight with Usyk. And I feel what he's saying. I know when I made videos about, his approach in a rematch, I basically said, like, I don't know if it's strategy. I mean, obviously, I think it needs to be some kind of strategy. Like, I expected if there's a point where he's getting thoroughly outboxed by Usyk, right? Which is what we saw. I felt like he was going to make some kind of adjustment and change the game up. I think he came into this fight a little overconfident in his boxing ability. Usyk, who's much more experienced than him, and a lot of us felt like going into the fight that he was a better boxer between the two. I figured that AJ would make some sort of adjustment in the fight. And I've seen him make adjustments in past fights. So I figured, like, if there's a chance where he's getting outboxed and he's down on points, which is very possible, maybe he will turn into a little bit of a bully. Like I've said, and some of you may disagree with me, but I personally think Derek Chisora did better than Joshua. That's just my belief. I think he did better against Usyk. Chisora did exactly what AJ is claiming he needs to do in his rematch. Which validates my point a little bit. Derek Chisora didn't go in there using a sweet science. He went in there trying to bully this guy and beat him down. I wasn't expecting that from AJ because AJ just doesn't fight like Chisora. You know, he's too defensive to do it. You know, it's a better boxer than Chisora. But Chisora's game plan from jump was, I'm not trying to box with this guy. I can't beat him at that. I'm going to use my size. I'm going to use my aggression. And I'm going to make him as uncomfortable as possible. And that's what made that fight as competitive as it was. Chisora still lost the fight, but I felt like he did more than what Joshua did. I think he won more rounds than Joshua did. It's my opinion. Now, if Joshua could find a way to mix some of that aggression, some of that size, and be a bully, and come into that rematch with using some of that sweet science that he's learned and developed over the years, and mix that with some more pressure, you know, hitting and trying to make it more of a rugged, rough fight, maybe he has a chance. Or maybe he gets hit more and get knocked out. I don't know what's going to happen in this rematch. What I do know is that what he did in the first fight is not going to work. He's right. The sweet science alone is not going to work. My thing is, can he still do it? Can he still be this person he claims he needs to be? It sounds real good in the interview. Sounded real good when I was listening to it just now, but mentally, when you're in there, can you still do it? You haven't really been that way in a long time. Remember when AJ changed, right? When he came back lighter in that Andy Ruiz rematch, he wasn't more aggressive. He was actually trying not to engage and trying to outscore Andy Ruiz, which he did clearly, but he wasn't really trying to engage with Andy. The few moments that he did, he kind of snapped out of it and then backed up and went back to fighting at long range, you know, picking the spots, which is part of the sport. But I haven't seen him be that aggressive in a while. You know, I seen signs of it in a Pulev fight, you know, when he had Pulev hurt. But Pulev wasn't really even Andy Ruiz, because Pulev is a guy that works behind his jab, uses distance. It's not an inside fighter. You didn't have to worry about those hooks that Andy Ruiz was drawing, you know, in that first fight. Pulev is not a hooker. So, can he mentally do it? You know, being that he's been hurt and he's been stopped, mentally, can he do it? That's the one question I can't answer. We just have to wait till the rematch and see what happens. You know, even if he were to lose again, you know, and I said the same thing with Wilder and Fury after the second fight. Going into this trilogy, going into the third fight between them. I picked Tyson Fury to win the third fight. But I also said I expect Wilder to do better than what he did in the second fight. Now, round by round, I personally think Wilder did the best in the first fight, right? But Fury made his changes. You know, Joshua said, look, he went to Crunk in order to prepare for Wilder. He didn't stick to what he was used to. Now, the thing is, AJ sounds like he's planning to keep Rob McCracken. He came to the U.S. to work and learn and see how these other coaches, how they work, you know, how they train. You know, wants to get familiar with them a little bit. And let me see how they do things here. You know, flying out to Cali, flying out to Texas, bouncing around, seeing different coaches, learning about them, and just trying to see, you know, what kind of chemistry you have with them. You know, he brought up the history behind the coaches and how many champions they trained. He brought up all that stuff. We don't need to go through that. He was with Ronnie Shields. You know, he was with Virgil Hunter. You know, he was with Eddie Reynoso. He was with Robert Garcia. And he was just talking a little bit about, in those 10 days, he went to the 5 different locations or something. It was draining, but he's obsessed with learning. Like I said to y'all before, he's obsessed with it. He keeps talking about, I want to learn. I want to learn. It seems like he's trying to get with one of these coaches to work and help him towards his next fight without removing Rob McCracken. I really don't know how that's going to work. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying it will work. I don't know. He talks about his team a lot. And he basically says, he trusts his team to figure things out. And I agree with that. Preparation is definitely important, but when you're in the ring, I still expect the adjustments I expect him to make those adjustments. Yeah. I think sometimes I wonder, like, as much respect as I have for him, sometimes I feel like he puts too much on the team. Now, when I say that, I understand, like, he's not a guy that likes to make excuses, right? Like when he lost to Andy Ruiz and he talked about that and he compared himself to like Wilder in the situation with Fury. Didn't make many excuses. Didn't make any excuses at all. He took responsibility of the loss. He did what he had to do, came back and won the rematch, right? But sometimes I feel like he talks about the team as far as preparation. When he was asked, were you trying to outbox Usyk? Which it appeared that way. It looked like he was trying to outbox Usyk. He wanted to beat him. He even said, like, people are expecting me to use my size and stuff like that. He wanted to use the sweet science and beat Usyk. But he also said, like, no, I did what we prepared for. My training, my team prepared me and coached me to do. But you did go in there to try to outbox Usyk. Even if you did, that's okay. I think the only thing I was disappointed with was the fact that you didn't adjust when it wasn't working. When it wasn't working, you kept going at exactly what wasn't working. And a lot of us were sitting here watching the fight waiting. It was a good interview overall. I like when AJ is fired up, though. I like when he's fired up. I like when he's raw and uncut like that. You could still be classy. You could just still be like raw. I like that. I don't know if anything he's going to do is going to work. But I do like the fact that he's going right at it. I'm liking the fact that he's able to go in front of the camera and do an interview addressing everything that's being said about him. I like that he's not hiding. I like the fact that he's aware that he has 6 months. I think Eddie Hearn said that it's probably going to be in March in the UK. I like the fact that he's already on the hunt and he's already in preparation. Getting ready and figuring out what's the best route to take for this next fight. Because he's going to need it. He's going to need everything as possible, like anything that's out there in order to win this fight. Because Usyk is that good. He might not be as big as Fury. He might not punch as hard as Deontay Wilder, but Usyk has different dangers in there. We saw in that first fight. I think people don't realize too that AJ was badly hurt in that last round. And he got rocked quite a few times in that fight. I think people are missing out on that. I'm surprised to see some people had scored it so close. You know, some people out there really had it close between them. I really didn't think it was that close. But I like the guy, man, and I thought it was a good interview. It was very entertaining to listen to. And all we got to do is wait and see at this point. But I like his approach. You know, him talking about taking it back to the streets and being more aggressive. I need him to have that killer instinct. You know, for the Ruiz rematch, you took a different approach. You wanted to outbox him, which was cool. And you've been doing well since then, you know. But Usyk, in order to beat him, is going to take something different. But he has to be very careful because he's not going to be the first fighter that tried to outwork or try to pressure and bully Usyk. He won't be the first. A lot of guys have tried to do that and they failed. So bring that pressure, but bring smart pressure, educated pressure, and mentally gear himself into wanting to fight that way. He seems to be pissed off. We see him become a title holder again after he lost before, so it's possible, but Usyk is no Andy Ruiz, and I told you guys that before. That loss was a different kind of loss. He addressed the people that said that he shouldn't take the rematch. I think he should take the rematch just because, not just because they agreed to it, but if you have the chance to win 3 of the 4 major titles again, after you collected them, why not take it? Yeah, it does slow down like the heavyweight division. It slows down things from moving on. It slows down undisputed and stuff like that. But he's not concerned with that. He's concerned about, listen, you got to look at it from his standpoint. I collected these belts. I won the fights to get these belts together. So if anybody deserves another shot, he does. It is what it is. Anyway, good video, man. Check it out. I'll definitely leave it in the comments section, the IFL TV interview. It was good to hear something and get answers, you know, instead of just holding out. I'm like that he answered these questions, and the questions were good questions. All right. But yeah, I got more stuff to talk about, so be on the lookout for more content. Hit that thumbs up. And make sure you subscribe as well if you haven't already, all right? Peace.